here. I, Dr. Pronima Bakshi, on behalf of Dr. Vishwanath Karad, MIT World Peace University, welcome each one of you to the third edition of Indcon, a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia to drive research and development policy reforms in India. This 3-day virtual conference will have different sessions aligned with the theme of this year, which is Building Stronger Research and Development Ecosystem, Enabling Saksham Bharat Abhiyan. I request my technical team to kindly relay a video on the theme of this event.
Becoming a global leader is a noble dream. What is our strength as India? It is knowledge. The strength of a nation in the digital age we find ourselves in is governed solely by its research and development index. The speed by which technology is accelerating has been unmatched since the dawn of humanity. India boasts of the largest manpower pool under the age of 30 in the world. Though we have potentially a gold mine of researchers with us, we barely produce any research. We have to import technology from nations like China. Our universities and our industry do not seem to share the deep connection that they do in countries like the US or China. That is why the IMC's Knowledge Committee, in association with MIT World Peace University, are hosting Indcon, a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia. The way for India to become a global leader lies in its repository of knowledge. Indcon is the way to do so.
Indcon 2020-2021 is organized by IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry under the leadership of Shri Rajiv Poddar and Knowledge Committee Chairman Shri Rahul V. Karad. Dear delegates and participants, I gladly welcome you all to this third conclave of the series focusing on Bengaluru and Chennai regions. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce CIAP briefly. The Center for Academic Industry Partnerships was started with the intention to build collaborations with industry and academia to encourage the maximum potential and impact outcomes. The step taken is in the direction to develop innovative solutions through process-driven approach. It's indeed my privilege to introduce Mr. Praveen Patil, the CEO of Center for Academia Partnerships, who has been a pioneer in developing it and taking this initiative ahead by bringing a significant change within the university. After having very successful deliberation in the inaugural and the first session of this conclave, we are now heading towards session 2, which is on the theme Industry, Academia, Knowledge Collaboration, Role of Corporates in India. I would again request my technical team to kindly relay a video on the theme of this session.
Academia and industry are two important pillars of our economy. In countries like the US, corporates reach out to universities to bring innovation into their work. While in India, corporates and industry bodies rely mostly on their own research rather than reaching out to the educational institutions. There is a need for significant contribution from industries in India to encourage initiatives like faculty development programs in leading universities.
It's indeed my honor to introduce the esteemed panel for this session. The speakers for this session are Mr. Alok Anand, the Chairman and CEO of Acumen Aviation. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Parsuraman T, the Deputy Managing Director of Toyota. I welcome you, sir. And we also have with us Mr. Vinod Kumar, the CEO and Managing Director of Subex Limited. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. For this session, we have Dr. Shailashree Haridas, the Associate Director of MIT School of Government, the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Faculty of Commerce. And she is going to be moderating this session. Before I formally hand over the session to ma'am, I would like to make an important announcement for our participants. If you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box or in the Q&A panel. And if time permits, our moderator will be taking a few questions towards the end of this session. So thank you so much. And I now would like to formally hand over the session to the moderator. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar to one and all. It's indeed my great pleasure to welcome and moderate the session where we have all the eminent experts on this particular panel. We have the people from the automobile, we have the people from the aviation, from IT, all three different areas as such. What a good fortune today for me to moderate on this particular subject where we are talking more about how do we build up the research culture. That's something which is very close to my heart always. In my 20 plus years of experience as a consultant for a few companies, also as a trainer for a couple of corporates and the dean and the professor for economics, I have seen the expectations from both the sides. Usually what happens is corporates say that university has to do this and university says that, corporate has to do that. So finally, who needs to do what is something which we need to do the brainstorming as of now. I'm indeed thankful to IMC, the institution which always has given the best solution on different policy issues to different government bodies and different stakeholders of the economic development. And also the MIT World Peace University headed by Shri Rahul Karad, who always thinks about, thinks more about the changing the personality of the children rather than giving only the book knowledge. Thanks to IMC and WPU, my thanks to both of them. In order to start this particular session, or before I start, let me welcome Shri T.R. Parsuraman, President, the Deputy Managing Director of Toyota Industries Corporation, and the Senior Vice President, Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Sir, you are the Chairman of Quality Circle Forum of India too, and you have held many positions at Automotive Component Manufacturing Association of India, ACMA, and also the CI, Confederation of Indian Industries, and BCIC, etc. I'm thankful to you and welcome you from the bottom of my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard enough about the quality at Toyota. The Toyota way is the Bible for many of the MBA students too. And today, we have the great personality in front of us who runs the company day and night. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot as such. I also welcome Shri Alok Anand, Chairman and CEO of Acumen Aviation, a global company which provides aviation asset management solution, a licensed aircraft engineer who has worked with many airline service providers, including Jet and Air India earlier. He has also worked with Air Deccan, the low-cost carrier LCC, as head of maintenance control center head. So you come from a very niche sector, a vertical, I should say, and very few people are having the capabilities like you. I was mentioning to sir a bit earlier about one of the case study which I have written for the classroom discussion about Air Deccan and is Gopinath a hero. I really would like to take this discussion further beyond this particular research and innovation and the corporate expectations. We have a lot of things to do together possibly. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and I'm sure the audience will have a lot of questions because we usually find less audience, less speakers as well as the audience, those are interested in the aviation as such. I welcome you from the bottom of my heart, sir. I also welcome Vinod ji, who repeatedly demonstrated the strategizing and excellence in execution by inspiring the team and connecting the dots. A versatile corporate leader, CEO, and the managing director in Subex, a company deals with the software solutions. I welcome you, sir. Welcome. Just to set the ball rolling, of course, we really would like to learn more from the experts today. The million-dollar question for all of us is, how do we join the hands together? How do we join the hands with the corporate and the universities together? Uh, Whenever we talk about the research and innovation, we always talk about the IITs and IIMs, but the research need for the mother nation is many-folded. So what we need to do as a part of the society, and always we always think that it's the duty of the society to do something, it's the duty of the government to do something, it's the duty of the corporate to do something, or it's the duty of the university to do something. So is there any way that we can build up an ecosystem that all of us we come together and we do something more to that? As was mentioned earlier too, industry following the universities or university following the industry. How can we get the mutual benefit out of it? Of course, the new education policy, which is coming up by 2022, has addressed many of the things uh, as far as the concepts are considered. But how do we implement that is actually $1 million thing for all of us. Uh, Always we have this concern. The corporate India always has a concern about the reduction in the productivity. And nowadays I have seen in many of the companies, like management attention has definitely shifted to the industrial research and development, a wellspring of new technology as such. The directors and the senior executives, many times they come back and we keep on discussing that how best we can develop this research culture, so how best we can develop this ecosystem. So this conference will throw the light on the same thing. I invite the experts to comment on this. Initially, we'll have the opening remarks from all three experts today, and then we will be taking the questions further. I request Shri Vinod ji to give the opening remarks first. Over to you, Mr. Vinod.
I think sir is on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Doctor. Let me start by thanking IMC for this opportunity to be a part of this conference and be a part of a panel among this distinguished panelists. It's my privilege to be here. As Dr. Shailashree rightly mentioned, as a nation, we are at the cusp of a very, very interesting journey. And we are, I'm very proud to be a part of the ecosystem where we are seeing the emergence of a very confident nation. Now, with the benefit of a young population, we have put together a very bold and audacious plan to get to about 5 trillion economy by 2025. And also an inclusive one by digitally enabling and also becoming self-reliant. And also, if you look at the nation's entrepreneurial spirit, it continues to soar. And only yesterday I was reading that even during the pandemic, we had about 1,600 startups that came up, putting the total startups to over 40,000 in the country today. So overall, we are in a very, very, if you look at the whole India, it looks like very confident setup. Now, we just had this pandemic and it really unsalted a lot of things. And many things have changed. Just look at digitization to start with. It was always a part of an agenda, the broad agenda, but just about in every vertical, it fast-tracked and shrunk the execution by in orders of magnitude. Maybe 10 years it used to take. It happened in about 3 or 4 months. And also, it has also formed new habit forming, right? When you look at how when it comes to education, when it comes to consuming services, healthcare, and even working, it has changed the habit, and probably we will have a new normal as we go along. So in this context, for us to take advantage, it is very important that we need to reimagine the way every aspect of the society is held. And in that context, I think this discussion about the cooperation between the academia and the industry is very relevant and very timely. Now, if you look at this topic in a glance, it's needless to say that the relevance of industry in academia and academic research is very, very important. And if you look at the Indian context, again, as Dr. mentioned, it has been kind of relegated in very pockets to a, maybe some premier institutions and large corporates. so far what is happening in the country with respect to research or any kind of large-scale collaboration between the academy and the industry. While that is good, that's better than nothing. But if you look at our aspiration and the fact that the industry is finding that the lack of talent, specialized skillful talent in many new areas like cyber, AI, ML, and even in generic aspects like good communication, critical thinking, analytical thinking, all these aspects, there's a huge gap between what the industry is expecting and what probably today we are generating as or the outcome of all these academic institutions, that is the talents. Now look at from another dimension. There is always this concept of greed and glory, where institutions or the academic institutions the motives are more about glory, whereas the industry is more about greed. I mean, profits, revenue growth, etc. There's nothing wrong with it. Probably that's the way it should be. But the fact that when two systems with different motives have to work together, it cannot scale unless we have a right collaboration framework there. Now, maybe in the context, it is also good to know what is working well between the industry and the academia. One area which I think that we have made a good progress is one with respect to placements. It's been going for a long time, but I guess that the framework and the way things are working is much better, and there is clarity as to what one can expect from the placement or placement framework, both from an academic standpoint and the industry standpoint. And the reason why I'm bringing that is with different motives, this proves that if we have the right framework and the right will, we can make it work. Now, there are many areas where we can leverage it, research and the curriculum, but there are also certain low-hanging fruits that I think it is easy to start with. One key area is this whole the approach of interns. Now, it's very, very heartening to see that some of the deemed universities have started longer intern programs. So for example, in the engineering side, we find that many of the deemed universities have the last semester as complete intern. And this is a very good segue into bridging this gap. And it's being many corporates, both large and small, have started taking advantage of it. So interns is, even people are moving with a sort of short-term view. This is an area where we can really have a much long-term view. The other area is the alumni network, which is, again, I would say that it's quite underutilized at this point in time. And this is, again, an area where we can use it phenomenally for mentoring the students and, again, giving them a view into how the corporate is, what some of the key dimensions are. Now, I indicated earlier that most of the activities of the collaboration that's happening in India is between premier institutes and some big corporates. But if you look at the need, as Dr. Shailashree mentioned, it is primarily for the small and medium term, whether they want to do a lot of research in new concepts and they don't have the resources. And that's where the need is, and there is lack of engagement today. But there are some challenges as well. From an industry standpoint, they look for very targeted or a narrow engagement, fixed timeframes, definite outcomes, and the confidentiality that becomes important. So these are challenges that may be holding back some of these engagements from the small and medium enterprises. But overall, if you look at, there is no doubt that the potential is enormous. Now, the other area probably we can look at is bringing, as Dr. again mentioned, working faculties, or let's say practicing faculties more, and also giving the incentives and acknowledgement, both with respect to monetary and also from the project funding and etc., which is probably at this point I'm a bit way towards the academic oriented. So maybe that's an area which probably we can look at how to collaborate more. Now, to me, there is the big need of the hour is a clear, practical collaboration framework. Now, in the absence of that, there will be such engagements in pockets, but if we need to scale, there is a need for us to do that. And the way to go about it is a kind of co-creating this model. Now, if you look at the industry, I look back 10 years back, there was always a possibility of co-creating with our customers. And it was kind of, again, happening in pockets. But if you today, a lot more companies, small and large, are co-creating solutions along with their customers. Now, what has happened is there's a lot of frameworks and there is clarity, there is absolute transparency, and that has enabled us to co-create very easily with our customers. I think there is a need for us to recreate that co-creation element with academia so that we can come with the right frameworks covering all aspects: scoping, knowledge transfer, adoption within the industry, what is the research, and also the commercialization of the research. All these things can be covered in the framework, and that framework will make it very clear for everyone how to get out of it and what everybody gets out of this whole collaboration. Now, in summarizing, I would say that the potential of the collaboration is enormous. The timing is apt as we are recrystallizing the new normal post the pandemic. It's a good opportunity for us to redefine how the collaboration should be. The potential for such a collaboration is a win-win for all. The students, the graduating students will find the transition very easy. The industry will be benefiting immensely from getting the right skilled people who are job ready. And the institutions will generate a lot of goodwill by happy students and happy employers. Now, as we get into the new normal, I think let's use this opportunity to redefine the collaboration, and getting this right will be immensely helpful in our journey to make our nation an inclusive economic superpower. Thank you. I'll hand it over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Vinodji. Such a great insights you have mentioned. Actually, we have the plan to come up with the white paper after this particular conference, and I'm sure we'll be adding all the points, all the suggestions which you have made now, even in the opening remarks in that particular white paper. I completely agree with you that the collaboration has to be much more practical than that of what we do it on paper as such. We will definitely work towards that. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I have a couple of questions based on the opening remarks, but I'll take the opening remarks from all the experts, and then possibly we'll discuss about those questions a bit later. Let me move on to Parsuraman Ji further. Sir, you have always managed the things, and you have also led the people as such. I have read many times that people go to Toyota not for working, but they go to Toyota for thinking. And what Toyota is Toyota today is not only because of the people, but the process which you have set as such. So while setting up this particular process, this particular company like Toyota, Industrial Corporation and all, I'm sure a lot of research must have gone inside into that. So I request you to add on your points as for the opening remarks is considered. Over to you, Parsuraman.
Thank you, Dr. Shailashree Haridas, my colleague panelists, Dr. Supriya, and dear friends. First of all, thanks for giving me an opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts. This subject is also very, very close to my heart. In fact, bridging the gap between industry and academia, given the kind of challenges that India is facing as a nation, because we're talking about 2025, we'll jump to 5 trillion economy, and we'll be the third biggest GDP in the world. And not only the kind of economic power, but also the knowledge power, the new educational policy, which has been a very, very great boon to the nation. So all these things are quite favorable. And Make in India, again, the Atmanirbhar, all these activities, ultimately, it talks about bridging the gap between industry and academia, which is the biggest challenge. I would say the biggest challenge the nation is facing is this. See, we're able to produce excellent engineers, millions of engineers, but unfortunately, 90% of them are not employable. This is a very, very sad state of affairs. And if you look at organizations spend tons of energy, resources to train these people, which is a national waste according to me. So the national productivity is actually coming down. And therefore, what industries should do, what academicians should do. In fact, whenever I visit the United States, I've seen many colleges like Stanford, Berkeley, I was always surprised to see Nobel laureates working at the age of 85 or so in the industries, and they are so closely linked with the universities and industries, and a lot of research is converted into practical application. So the first biggest gap, I would say, is the back to basics. Means the fundamentals are lacking in the teaching arena. I don't want to say it is because of the teaching methodology or the lack of resources or the lack of practical approach. In fact, we learn so many things like law of thermodynamics, Archimedes principle, Edison rules, many things, Wheatstone network. But when you ask the students, when I talk to thousands of engineers, when I interview them, when I talk to them, the basics, they're completely shaking. In fact, one of the common questions I asked in the interview is the longest stick that you can place it on a cubicle room, 1 meter side. To my surprise, 99% of the people are not able to answer this simple question. You know, it can be on the diagonal and hypotenuse on the base, that becomes a side, and on vertical, it is √3. But I get hundreds of answers, which is completely confusing. All I mean to say is the students lack the fundamentals. And, you know, that APPLE apple, they should understand. You know, somebody wanted to describe the earth. They said it is, earth is round, circular, rectangular. When you look at earth from a horizontal distance, you are not able to visualize the earth. But once you look earth from 1,000 kilometers above the sea level, you should be able to see it as a beautiful blue ball, and you should be able to put it in your pocket. I think that big picture is completely lacking in today's educational system. You know, they talk about I-5 things, but when you go to the root of the problem, they're completely shaken. I think this is one of the biggest differences between a normal engineering college and an IIT. You know, the IIT guys, they learn the basics so strongly. So building the foundation becomes much easier. Therefore, the first biggest challenge is how do we really train them as engineers? You know, not just the laws of thermodynamics or Faraday's law, but how do they make practical models out of it in a very simple way? Not necessarily in the college. At home, they can build the beautiful, simple kits. In fact, this is one big difference between when I meet the foreign students in Japan or Europe or United States and our own students. This kind of a culture is, you know, taught from the childhood days. Even building these puzzles, solving the problems at a practical stage, making your own cars when you're young. I think this kind of fundamental knowledge is completely lacking. This is point number one. And the second biggest challenge I see is the quality of the faculty themselves. So very unfortunately, I'm very surprised to see the faculty in many colleges are sheer messengers. They are not able to teach the real fundamentals. In fact, I had the opportunity to interact. In fact, I'm also in the governing council of some of the institutes, and I was also involved in setting up the basic syllabi for some of the management academic studies. So I was very surprised to see that we don't have the kind of a right bandwidth of faculty. In fact, be it training, I think I would also largely make the administrators responsible for that. You know, the faculty should have some kind of a practical experience. They should have a natural wisdom to understand the depth of the subject. Then they should also know the practical side of it. See, many times I'm quite disturbed to see they're either too theoretical and the practical is completely missing. And secondly, they're also trying to prepare the students for the examination purpose, which is definitely not acceptable. I think the key point I'm trying to say is you cannot get fish every day. You should learn them, teach them how to fish so that it is for lifetime. I think this complete game-changing mind is very important. And thirdly, I would see a huge gap in terms of infrastructure. Like I visited hundreds of engineering colleges in various capacities, but I'm very surprised to see these institutions lack the basic infrastructure, be it the mechanical engineering labs or electronic labs. So they don't have the kind of physical infrastructure. Then without such kind of physical infrastructure, how do we develop and train students? It's next to impossible. And therefore, I think we need to invest on those kind of infrastructure, the right labs, the latest equipments. Many colleges which are not able to invest, at least they should tie it up with leading institutions and partner with them so that the students get their quality time. And the fourth, the biggest challenge I see is internships. See, today, honestly speaking, internships is taken as a kind of a passport or a kind of a criteria to put it in the CV that I have attended the intern in so many leading companies. But unfortunately, neither the institute or the corporate, they don't take care of these interns, nor there is an evaluation mechanism. See, at the end of the internship, there is no evaluation mechanism, nor there is no presentation to the top management, nor there is no fixed target given to these interns. Therefore, the students also, it becomes a chalta hai. They just 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They're very happy telling that I have attended intern in big companies, not to name them. But at the end of the day, what did you achieve through the internship program? What is the single biggest achievement that the students have made is a big question mark, because there is no evaluation mechanism, there is no guide to them, there is no fixed assignable target given to them at the beginning, and no evaluation mechanism at the end of the internship. And people are very comfortable in joining the intern of a big company, whereas they can actually learn in small companies like startups. They can really learn the job. They are put on the job. So this is a big difference. In fact, when I talk to many students in US, they would have got a lot of big companies like Google or Facebook, but they don't want to join such big companies. They tell me that they would like to join a startup company because the first 5 years is a formative year. So a student, once he becomes a professional, this first 5 years, the learning curve is very, very important. That is creating the foundation stone for him. So if you don't learn the expertise in the first 5 to 10 years, the rest of your career is going to be a big waste. And finally, I think today when I look at the positions of job in various industries, ultimately 95%, 80-85% of the students, they would like to enter into a management field ultimately. But they lack many of the soft skills, be it the presentation skill, communication skill, problem solving skills, interpersonal skills, negotiation skills, analytical skills, human resource development skills. I think these are very, 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 very important and basics. And as a leader, your job is not you should not work. You should make people work, which means you are in the top of the pyramid. Therefore, how do we develop the base of the pyramid? So if you make a mistake, the entire team is misled in the wrong direction. Therefore, how to develop this kind of quality leadership skills while they are young. In fact, quality circles. In fact, when I was the chairman of the Quality Circle Forum of India in Karnataka, I coined the word 1 + 1 should be greater than 2, which means synergy should happen. In fact, many people mistake quality circles as kind of cost reduction tools. It's completely wrong. Quality Circle is one of the biggest human resource development platform. I always talk about what I listened to Mr. Watanabe, the former president of United Toyota Motor Corporation in Japan. In one of the TQM forums, he said, through quality circles, you can learn 5 works. He said the first work is footwork. Footwork is not cricket. It is going to a point of action where the problem is happening. And using all your 5 senses, understanding what the real is. And of course, using the 6th sense, the common sense, mostly uncommon. So using all these senses, touching, hearing, feeling, tasting, and listening, and using the common sense, understanding the problem at the site, that is the biggest problem. Once you understand the problem, so solving the problem is so easy. In fact, in this connection, I talk about Toyota's A3 writing. In fact, even $1 billion investment of Toyota is made in a single A3 writing. In fact, when I was attending a leadership development program in Toyota, Japan, In fact, it's stretching to almost 6 months to 1 year. So the problem is very simple. I'm supposed to make a A3 presentation to the management, top management. I remember I had some 4 or 5 meetings at my Bangkok office in Thailand and 3 presentations in Japan. Finally, I had to make a single presentation. I remember I had more than 48 meetings with my then managing director, Mr. Isashi Suzuki. And if you ask me, have I completed my A3 writing? Honestly speaking, I'm not satisfied. All I mean to say is the road for success is under construction. There is nothing called success. It's very easy to make a 1,000-page report. The same report, if you have to make it in 100 pages, more difficult. But if you have to make the same report in a single A3 paper, you have to really churn your mind 1,000 times. That is where the human development happens. That is what I mean, the big picture. What is the real biggest problem? We have got to do millions of things, but what is the most single important problem where we have to focus as a nation, as an organization, as an institution? I think this is our big problem. So we spend billions of dollars, but our focus is not there. What is the biggest problem? We are not in a position to understand. So this power of A3 is something phenomenal. Why I wanted to talk about A3 writing in this forum, this is what I mean, the big picture. The student should have the clarity of thought. I think that image should be perfect in understanding the problem. That is why in Toyota, we don't have barriers. In fact, I worked in finance, I worked in purchase, I worked in human resource, I worked in maintenance, manufacturing, name any field I worked in Toyota, which means beyond a point, the managers should be able to, work in any function. This is because of the A3 writing. The problem is common in every function, be it human resource or production control or in teaching. How to conceptualize the big picture, I think that's very, very important. Therefore, in my opinion, I think there is a huge gap between the soft skills and the current academia, what is given in the curriculum, and technical skills are completely lacking. So fundamental skill, elemental skill, and the attitude skills. In fact, many times we don't have good attitude. Today, industries are facing many higher challenges. So we are spending billions of dollars. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the right attitude to work, everything else lost. It's like, Dairya Lakshmi, the king lost all his wealth. One after another, the Lakshmi started walking out. Finally, when the Dairya Lakshmi started walking out, the king went and hugged her. And all other Lakshmi started coming back. So I think the Dairya Lakshmi is the attitude which is missing. And how do we teach the students the fundamental culture, the true values of our nation? What is our contribution to society? What is my role as a mankind, human mankind? Human being, how do I contribute to the society? This is completely lacking. So there is a lot of short-sightedness. People would like to make quick money next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the millennial problem. And at the end, they get completely confused and they are neither here nor there. Ultimately, with this kind of a generation gap, I think how do we create a great nation? I think this is one question that I put to the audience. I think the new educational policy is addressing a lot of these challenges in terms of how do I create the value systems, the kind of new attitude, the kind of my role and responsibility for the society. I think with the words of Abdul Kalamji, he said, where there is virtuousness in heart, there is beauty in the character. Where there is beauty in the character, there is harmony at home. Where there is harmony at home, there is order in the nation. And where there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world. So all I mean to say is the change has to start from myself. Instead of telling that my parents, my society, my friends, my teachers, I think how do we develop such kind of students at the curriculum, at the academia level? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have actually pointed out all pain points of the corporate as well as the university. Even from the university side, we always feel that why are we not getting such type of the students we had 10 years before? This is something we always think in all our brainstorming sessions, saying that and then we say this is a generation gap possibly where they don't want to learn more about the concepts. But yes, we always think about that, how best we can inculcate the fundamental conceptual knowledge to the children. Possibly, when you and me, we studied, we used to sit with heap of newspaper even to make one assignment and to read and read and read. But now we finally blame it on Google. So even on a lighter side, I always talk to my students also saying that cut, paste, copy is okay, but cut it, copy it, and paste it here. You have to paste it in the brain. That's what on a lighter side we always talk about. But there are a lot of dimensions to that. I have a couple of questions, but I'll definitely get back to you, after the opening remarks by Alokji. Alokji, as I mentioned earlier, you being from the aviation sector, we all are eagerly waiting for you to listen to your opening remarks. Over to you, Alokji.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haridas. Thank you, IMC and MIT WPA. Well, for me, what I've heard so far, first of all, I feel I'm very lucky to be here because I think I got a crash course in MBA and management now from Mr. Parsuraman and Mr. Vinod Kumar here. So I am possibly from the next generation. And my experience is more on a startup side and entrepreneurship. So, I don't want to repeat whatever has been already said because I think they are very well conceptualized and explained the challenges we all have in front of us. But maybe I can focus a little bit on, from my experience, how we are trying to address these challenges or what could be a way to address these challenges, both from a generational point of view and both and the other is from the point of view of a collaboration, what can be achieved between the industry and the academia. So the first point, given the kind of business we are lucky to work with a lot of nationalities as our other esteemed colleagues here. And we, just to explain my point, when Acumen started 10, 12 years back, I was very proud of the fact that I'm the youngest in the company. And I think today, possibly I'm the oldest with a few exceptions. So you can imagine how our business is, in that sense. So we have the challenge all the time, getting our point across to the next generation, appealing to them to learn what we need them to learn in terms of growth and skill sets. And these challenges are very valid. What Mr. Parsuraman and Mr. Vinod Kumar has explained, they are absolutely right on the ball. One of the things I like to say to the team which comes on board, and when a young engineer, we work with a lot of them, aviation engineers or an MBA or any other strategic analyst or commercial analyst comes to me and asks, what should I do to progress in my career? There is one advice which has always stood by is I like to say it like this exactly, don't learn the job, learn the trade. There's a big difference between the two, Anyone can do the job. Anyone can learn their job, what your job description or profile is. Learning the trade means learn everything there is to do in the business you're getting into. So if you are in an airlines, and I'm sorry, I'm going to take examples from my industry, obviously. I've been throughout in that industry. If you are in an airlines, and if you are into ticketing, let us say, you must still know everything else which goes behind the scenes in the airlines. What a pilot is doing, what an engineer is doing, crew is doing, how an ops control runs, and everything else in between. Without knowing that, you cannot really expect to grow in your career and to get to a stage where you will be in a position to run the show. And I know that a lot of young people aspire to do that. But even to get better in their own job and to deliver value to the industry they're working in, they need to learn the trade. And I think that is where the industry academia collaboration can do a lot. So moving on to the second point I was making, what we are trying to do, for example, is that we have approached various academia in the aviation space. We have actually gone outside India as well, but we are starting with India first, where we are trying to create collaborative programs with them. And this is not necessarily reinventing the wheel. This is something we are learning when we are seeing our counterparts in other countries. So I think Mr. Parsuraman possibly Mr. Vinod made a comment that that the industry experts should get involved in conducting programs or trainings, and that's absolutely correct. So we are trying to do the same. The difference is what I've seen overseas in the universities is they're conducting specialized programs where they invite industry experts as a matter of routine to conduct those programs, and the programs are tailor made, not from purely an academic or a narrow traditional point of view. So to give you an example, while aviation itself is niche, within aviation, what we do, asset management, is not actually an industry which is right now existing in India. You may be surprised to know this. Our client base is completely overseas. While we are actually working with the Indian government to change that in the coming days. But having said that, since it is changing and the Indian government is taking a lot of interest in this industry now, we started a program few months back to collaborate with the industry and conduct skill-based programs, because we realize that the industry in here or the market here doesn't have the skill sets to offer. So maybe that served us good, that example. And I think the same approach can be taken by various industries where, to the point made by Mr. Vinod about greed and glory, I think it's absolutely apt. And I think the greed has to be taken into perspective from a deferment point of view. Maybe defer that greed for a while to create the base of skill sets. So what I'm saying is, I'm just quoting from my example, that we need to participate more actively with the academia to create the programs. And since I'm from the industry, I'm saying from that point of view, obviously we need academia to support us back. That's it from my side, Dr. Haridas. Over to you, please.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Possibly you have bridged all the gaps which were there in the initial opening remarks. So nice of you and thoughtful for making that as such. I have a couple of questions, and we also have received a couple of questions in the chat box and also on my personal window. I'll be choosing a couple of questions and so that the flow of the discussion will be managed and maintained in the similar fashion. My first question, which I've taken from the audience only, to Mr. Vinod Kumarji. What are the leadership challenges, which you face as a leader in the company in developing the research culture? I have combined two questions here. So the leadership challenges which you as a leader face while developing the research culture in the corporate. That's what something possibly some of the audience would like to know. Over to you, Vinodji.
Yeah, thank you again. So just to quickly, briefly tell where we are operating. We operate in the realm of digital trust, and we believe that trust is becoming super important in the digital world, and it will be a key pillar. Currently, we do business in over 90 countries with 200 very large corporations, and we have about 1,000 employees, so we call ourselves Subexians. Now, I think it's very clear that as we move into new areas and we are trying to address large problems, it's clear that we need to leverage technology. And while leveraging technology, some of the current technologies will fall short based on the problems that you're taking. So the problems that we are taking as things like security, which I've talked about, cybersecurity or identity, privacy, content, consent-based thing. These requires, managing technologies like post-quantum cryptography, homomorphic encryption. These are all in the development phase. Now, we require a lot of support from a lot of quarters if we have to move quickly. If our aspiration is global and we are catering to a large people, because we are talking for working with Fortune 500 companies, and if we have to engage with them and we are saying that we will take you out of the curve, we should have the capability to really engage them that. And this is the area where we fall short, because our orientation, as we said, is a P&L based things, and a small organization like ourselves, there is only so much so we can carve out for generic research. Specific research, yes, but a generic research is where probably we would want to spend a lot more effort on. And we have started doing it slowly, and that's when probably a year back or so We have started engaging with institutions, as Alok rightly mentioned. We are now working with several institutions, and we are in very, very strategic phase in some of the institutions in Singapore and in Spain, where we are working on the cutting edge. The challenge is for us to attract the people, right people into our organization, because being a small organization, how do we give them growth? Because this is a very specialized section. If we have 3 or 4 people, how do you build a career to them? It's different if you have a large corporate. But if, let's say, we have a team of 5 or 10 people, what is a career management for them? And that's where, after a few years, unless the team grows in size, we are not able to have career, because the moment that we attract a research organization into a corporate world, on the other side of corporates, there are career, there are promotions, there are growth. How will a small team manage that? These are some of the challenges that we are facing, that attracting the people, retaining the people, as because we are not a research organization and we are not a very large organization with a very large wing. So that's our, from what we read, where I said that's my view on this matter.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. There are a lot of challenges possibly each one of us may face to make this ecosystem happen as such. Parsuramanji, one of the question which has come again from the audience here, based on possibly this is based on your opening remarks, that finally the ecosystem will be developed when once the academics creates more value in research and a particular business model for the corporate. That's something which is actually the base mark which universities has to understand, and corporates will definitely be a partner in that. Unless until they find the business value in that or business proposition in that, there is no point for the corporates to take that research input from the universities. But having said it, what is, in your opinion, that in what level we need to change the structure of the Indian education system now? Because we from the academic side, we are on the higher education, we blame the schools. School says that no, now the values needs to be built up, the conceptual things can be built up at the higher education level. Undergraduation, people say that has to be done at the post-graduation level. So you are also on the board of many colleges and different universities. You also have traveled to different countries. So if you can throw some light on the cross-country experiences, and what are your expectations about the changes which we need to implement in order to bring this research culture in the Indian education system? What do you, Parsuraman ji? Sir, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The thinking mind where we develop creativity and innovation is very, very important. I think that is why the startups are very, very important. In fact, when I visited the Google campus, I was very surprised to see a lot of young engineers working under the tree in very casual dresses. And they're all the real geniuses. The creativity comes once the mind is very free. In fact, people had asked Steve Jobs, how did you develop this great iPad? Right? His answer was when iPad was launched, hardly the customer know only about palm tops, desktops, or laptops. So what he said is, you go to a level where even a customer cannot even imagine. I think he talks about epiphany, where it is a cloud busting of ideas. Once you reach that kind of a sky, there is no competition, which means aiming towards perfection and beyond perfection. Then you don't have any kind of a competition. I think that is where the creativity and innovation, they play a very, very important role. Therefore, it's very important that academics should encourage creativity and innovation. And they should be able to work with many organizations hand in hand. In fact, startup is a great connection. So many startups, can be supported by these institutions. And there can be a lot of frequent industry academia exchange programs. For example, 3 years sabbaticals can be given to the faculties. They can work in a lot of research labs or in industries. Similarly, the industrial experts can be put on the academic institutions. So this kind of cross-functional exchange program they can bring in a lot of synergy and try to bridge the gap. And many joint ventures between the, education institutions and industries, together with the Government of India funding programs through NSDC on research and innovation, can be implemented. So the government, the industry, and academia, so with a very clear-cut purpose and a specificity, can be tailor-made on specific subjects of national interest. And once it is successful, it can be rolled out to a lot of other institutions as well. So a lot of this kind of hackathon or kind of Olympiad events connecting the industry and academics can be planned. And in fact, one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is our investment on research has been abysmally low compared to the Western countries, which is easily around 7-8%. But India, most of the times it is 1 to 2%, and many cases it is significantly low. Therefore, there should be a lot of government incentives. In fact, we also appeal to the Honorable Finance Minister. We had a meeting one-to-one from the Bangalore chambers. How do we incentivize such kind of programs, wherein a lot of focus is coming on the R&D, and therefore such programs will catalyze the kind of creativity, innovation, and research, fundamental research. Again, not just the fundamental research. How do we convert that fundamental research into a conceptual idea, and how ultimately it can be implemented in the startups, finally can be linked to the bigger industries. So this kind of end-to-end program is very, very important, not just the one portion of it. It should be completely cohesive. And a lot of exchange programs of students to various industries with a specific purpose, as I said, can be done. In fact, they can be sent on 1 or 2 years of deputation. See, in fact, ideally, I would say not just the theoretical portion. They can work on industries for 1 or 2 years. In fact, the theoretical portion can be a kind of secondary. Mainly 2 years learning in a big industry with a specific target. They can parallelly pass these examinations. See, passing the examination is not the big problem. Working on these industries and learning, I think that should be given more credit linked to their subjects. For example, somebody is working on control systems. They can work on companies manufacturing these control systems. They can put their hands, work on that, make a paper out of it, finally submit it. That is the real learning. So I think the new educational policy is also fully supportive of such kind of activities, which is fostering innovation, creativity. You can choose any subject of your choice. See, today, most of the students are being forced by the parents or the peer pressure just to take up engineering subjects or engineering studies because of the compulsion. There's no passion attached to their subjects, which means they should be in a position to do what they would like to do. I think this kind of clarity is very important. Finally, all these things will foster innovation and creativity as we go across. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. I have one more question which has come up twice. Of course, I'll pass this question to Mr. Alok. This is more towards regarding the startups. So whenever we talk about the research or any new ideas or the innovative ideas, we always point our finger towards the startups. So what are the challenges which startup is facing in collaborating with the university? So it's not that startups are not doing it, and we also have enough startups. Government is funding enough for those startups, but finally, like we are unable to hit the jackpot. That's what is the question which has come. Over to you, Mr. Alok.
So I think what possibly the question means, hit the jackpot means get that one big idea going. Yeah. So jackpot can mean many things. It can mean money, and it can mean growth of ideas as well.
Yes.
So I don't know what the questioner really meant, but
idea towards getting the right idea in the right place.
Right. So yeah. I think we are slowly heading towards a culture. Not maybe slowly is the wrong word now. Due to see, one silver lining of the COVID crisis has been an acceleration towards what we would like to call. I'm coming across so many young people who are having, so ideas are there. People are trying to now get self-reliant. They want to do things on their own. Now, when it comes to a startup, I think one of the things which I would say from my experience is to get rid of the inhibitions in themselves, that since we are a startup and we are a new company, we are not a big brand, we cannot do this or we cannot do that. I think they need to start believing in their own ideas. See, one thing is to believe in the idea to launch a startup, get people going. But you have to be able to see, if you're good enough to start a company, you're good enough to hire people, you're good enough to go out and share your ideas with the academia also and invite them on board. I agree that there are a lot of academia also who go for names, so that I think there is also a hidden problem here, is that the industry wants to collaborate with the big universities. The universities want to collaborate with the big companies only, mostly. I know it brings a lot of value, reputation, etc. But the true innovation, grassroots level innovation, is actually happening in the startup world, in the tier 2 and tier 3 of India today, where a lot of new ideas are coming up. And I think what they need is they need an ability to get a place to incubate these ideas with the academia. And I think a very important role can be played by the academia in creating course curriculums which are producing graduates different than what has been traditionally the case. So one thing I was seeing here is that the traditional graduates have been I-shaped professionals. They're specializing, excelling in one area. But I think the need is to be T-shaped, where there is competency in different areas and excelling in one. This is building on to the idea I was saying earlier as to what we say to the new hires when we bring on board. Classrooms have to turn into learning spaces, not just a preparation for exams, semester to semester, prepare your exams. I mean, with all due respect, when we were studying in colleges, this is what we were going through, frankly. And I wish our kids, or even the generation which is in colleges now, experience something different, where there is, I think the word vocational needs to be stopped being used as a bad word, if I may say so. It's not a bad word. Vocational is not a bad word. Vocational is a great word. The training has to turn more vocational. It has to turn practical. We get a graduate from an engineering college who knows the basics, which is great. But then if I have to spend 2 years training him, or even 2 months, 6 months training them to know what we do, it's a waste. They need to be able to have at least some part of practicality. I know internship is one way to do that, but I think the course curriculums need to be revised. They need to keep up with the times. And there has to be some way, I'm sure industry can help, where the academia can build the course curriculums or keep them upgraded at a more frequent interval. Because now we are in a digital world. Everything we see today will be obsolete in 10 years, the technology, and new technology will take its place. But I don't think our syllabus and course curriculums have managed to upgrade themselves. I think they're possibly the same what they were 20 years back. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you said it so well. We always think, education should be the one which teaches you further that how to learn again. That is the only duty of the people. Those are on the education side as such. Vinodji, the thing which I have at the back of the mind, also one of the questions which I have received in my personal window here, that when once we are talking about the research and the innovation, or the culture of bringing both corporate and universities together, we always say that there are three stakeholders. One is the government as one of the stakeholder, which is a major stakeholder, and we always expect some funds from the government. And the IITs and IIMs or ISEC and such institutions, always they get enough funds, and that is one of the reasons they are in a position to maybe spend more on the research side of it. But all the universities, the private universities, they don't get any funds from the government. They have their own budgetary limitations on the other side. But having said it, it's not that government has to do. So government is one part, and the university is the other part. Universities, the private universities especially, we discussed now saying that how the curriculum needs to be changed, and how do we need to strengthen the incubation center which the university has. So there are many things which you have discussed. I wanted to listen from you specifically that what corporates can do, or what corporates should do in order to bring this ecosystem in a better way, or
Yeah.
how can we change this ecosystem? Over to you.
Yeah. So I think Alok alluded to the change in the new generation of students that are coming in. My opinion is that while they may not have some of the specialized skill, they are extremely confident. And if you engage them in the right way, I think we will be able to get fabulous, let's say, value creation from this team. I mean, it's so confident. It's so gratifying to see that they align when engaged properly. Now, I would also say that there is a need for us to align on the purpose. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is that many organizations have different purpose. They might be all in business, but they still have a purpose that they are off to. And I would say that maybe you should first have an alignment with the institutions or the educational institutions which are on the common purpose. Because I think if you find an institute or a part of the institute or a professor who is or a big department who is also going aligned with the same purpose, I would say the meeting of the minds happen. And that's the first thing that I think both to engage the institution and for the larger students which are very confident, having a right purpose and getting people aligned with that purpose is very important. Second, from a corporate standpoint, you need to take a slightly long-term view, again, as Alok mentioned. Now, let me tell our experience in this thing. We started interns very seriously about 2 years back. And the idea was that we always found it quite a challenge to engage the interns for 2 months or 1.5 months, because small company, we don't have an intern program. So each of the functions within the organization, if we try to engage with them and say that what can you meaningfully carve out for 1.5 months, the answer always was nothing. And then always we bring in the interns and give some low end work to them, which was neither making us happy nor them happy. Then we started looking, many deemed universities have the 6 months internship, and that changed the whole game altogether. Because in 6 months, we are able to train them as interns, get them ready, do a proper evaluation. And the interns also, the students also like us. They understand the culture, purpose, align with it. So it's a meeting of the minds, and easily we are able to graduate them to employees. Now, with that success, now we are re-engaging. How can we go and sort of reimagine how can we do this 2 months internship properly? And we are now, because all the functions within the company has seen this is the best run program that we had, interns. I mean, super productive, very engaging, and the fresh in the mind. Because being the industry for a few years, we know why something should not be done. But the new students who are coming, they don't have they don't know why it should not be done. So they come up with very innovative solutions to existing problems. So we are now reimagining how we can go and redefine the 2 months internship. So I think as an industry, if you take a slightly long-term view, then you pick up aligned with some institutes where you are aligned on the purpose. I think that's a start point. You have a lot you can do. We are now sitting with creating labs in some of the institutes. We are working the IoT security side. We have an IoT security lab created, one of the best in the world. We are gamifying it so to engage the students. So as a corporate also, we should reimagine how to engage with somebody whose motives are very different. So the things that I would say is that take a long-term view. This can be hugely, incredibly gratifying and beneficial for you in the long term. Get the support, align on purposes, and rightly you mentioned the government grants. There are a lot of grants out there, some known to many, some are many of them are not known to a public. So if we come together, we can create great projects, get the support from other institutions, may not be all governmental. There are World Bank loans or international loans that you can vie for. So if we come together, align on a purpose, I definitely think that you can have a lot of avenues and create some framework. And then the transparency. It's very important for us to be very, very transparent with the long-term orientation, transparency. And I keep talking about a framework because we are trying to create from the small engagement. We are trying to go with the framework to the institutions, which make it very easy. And the framework helps you to scale with a knowledge, or let's say the contact or the connect with one institution or two people in one institute and industry. You can take it to some extent. But if you can come with associations, forums, etc. If we can create a framework, it will help us to scale that much quickly. So I would say industry has to take a long-term view on this matter and come to the table with some suggestions, some options. I've never seen the academia pushing back. I think the problem is real from there, and also they want to engage. Many of the, we could sit here and complain that other side is wrong, but I guess there are problems on both sides. And I also believe that you can change it only from within. Don't expect that from industry to change by academia and academia to change by industry. You need to have this change from within. There can be catalyst. Policies can be a catalyst, framework can be a catalyst, but the real change, like in our case, we changed in 2 years back because we were struggling. We couldn't get research support on some of these key areas. So therefore, it was that was a wake-up call. We tried to reimagine ourselves. Now things are, we are more confident in engaging with the institution. We know what is in for them. We can say clearly what is in for us. And I guess that's the way to go about it. Change from change has to happen from internally within the industry and within the academia. There can be many catalysts, a long-term view, and a framework. Again, I would like to reemphasize that point, can all be very good catalysts for the change.
You have put it so apt and right manner. It's very easy to blame the other side as such, but possibly.
Dr. Haridas, can I come in for a minute, please?
Yeah.
Alokji, Vinodji, my compliments. Very good thought. I mean, in my experience of my discussion with the various stakeholders, I mean, we've been talking to Chamber of Commerce, we're talking to industry, we've been talking to government. And I think there's one thing that's very consistent that comes from everywhere is, yes, we want to do something for this purpose of improving the culture of research and development. But I think we need a catalyst. And I think you said the same thing once again. So I want to share, see, Indcon is a platform which is working towards, or it's a catalyst which is working towards making this happen. And that's where on this platform you will see people coming from the government sector, politicians, industry experts. We've got almost everybody coming on this platform and discussing and deliberating. And this discussion is not just happening like a webinar or a panel discussion and it gets over. No, everything gets recorded. We're making white papers by city. So, even Chennai, Bangalore chapter of ours, which is running right now, will be captured in the form of a white paper. And all of this will be consolidated, and, a final white paper will be submitted to the Prime Minister's office, to Ministry of HRD, Industries Secretary, Industries Minister. In fact, all of them, they've at various points in time addressed Indcon, the Industries Minister, Industry Secretary. The last year's Indcon was attended by the Cabinet Minister of India. And this year we had the industry secretary speaking again at the forum, and all of them, they agree that, we should do this. Now, just a few things that I wanted to respond, internships for 6 months, you spoke about internship for 6 months, and that's been a great success. I take care of industry academia collaboration in an MIT World Peace University. And I want to share, we pushed this cause for a very long time. And last year, our academic council, board of governors, we got clearance from everywhere. We did 6 months internship during the pandemic. And I want to tell you, we're getting a great response from the industry. Our students are loving it. The industry partners are very happy with that, kind of approach that we adopted, because that internship is meaningful for the students and for the industry, both. Exactly. Certainly, I mean, that's happening. But I think a dialogue like this, or events such as these, help us come and communicate and talk to each other in a larger forum. And I think my message is that, yes, this is a catalyst that we are trying to create, where we want to communicate, talk to each other, understand our pain points, our problems, and, see how we can facilitate, common grounds, and, make sure that we progress in this area. Dr. Haridas, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Patil. I'm sure, with this much of input from you, all the experts, those who joined here on the panel today, will think more about the white paper which you just introduced. And I think we can send a copy of that to all these panelists, and they will add a lot of value to that. that's something which we can take it further. Parshuramanji, I think this is the last question which I'll be taking given the time as such. One of the questions, of course, this question has come to me thrice. That's the reason I'm taking it. Of course, there are a lot of great comments, Parshuramanji, saying that you have spoken well and well said and all those. And along with this particular question, it's written by Mr. Piyush. Dear Parshuraman sir, if we come with right concept for betterment of society, wondering how we would get collaboration to excel. Possibly, he would like to know that if everything is in the place, how can we improve it further?
See, I just answered to Mr. Piyush in the chat box. See, once the concept is very clear, like if you're able to make a framework based on the data, what is the kind of impact to the society based on a particular breakthrough idea in the next 2 years, 3 years to come, based on the project feasibility, then it's very easy to get a collaboration partner. See, today, big challenge is many ideas are very fragile and quite, floating. So the investors are also not very clear whether these ideas will go through. So once the impact of society is made very crystal clear, be it on any topic of interest with sanitation, hygiene, or on kind of a new skill sets, definitely there will be a lot of people to come forward to support this project. See, many times what I see when I see a lot of proposals, the ideas are quite fluid in nature and they lack the clarity. I think when you make those propositions, once you come out with logical hypothesis, with substantiating KPIs, I'm sure a lot of investors, collaborators would come forward. And the key point is the data-based approach is very important. And what is the logical framework? We are addressing all these points to a good purpose, and culmination is very, very important. I'm sure definitely there'll be a lot of support mechanisms, including the government missionaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. Alok for the closing comments, please.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haridas. Well, in closing comment, I can simply say that the gaps and challenges we are facing, I think maybe I'll try and list out a few, but just to put a concise summary of this as to what we see as the gaps and challenges, and possibly this is something you will be addressing in your white paper. I think approach from and I think the academia approach, if I may say so, from an exam point of view to a practical view should be encouraged, I think. And I think from an industry point of view, one key thing I think we can take away is that one is the long-term approach, of course, which has been very well addressed. But also when we talk about research and development, I think the data sharing is a challenge. How to address that, where the confidentiality of data has to be addressed, the proprietorship of data, and also to create real-time problem statements for the students. While that is addressed to a certain extent through an internship mechanism, but I think to get a long-term benefit, we need to find a way where specific, if I may say so, that bridges can be created, information bridges between specific industries and specific universities, and they need not be just the universities we hear about all the time. I think all universities, a lot more than the usual ones we hear, should be part of this, because the skill challenge which Mr. Parsuraman spoke about, as he also said that while the basics are very good when it comes to IITs, the fact is we're not always hiring from IITs. We're hiring from every other university. So I think the challenge is to make sure the academia and the industry collaborate at multiple levels to address this. I think managed to, if you would like me to add something else, but I think Dr. Haridas, I think that will be all from me.
Absolutely. Collaboration at different level is something which is actually, the golden word, which we really would like to take it as such. It's not that just one level collaboration happens, but if you can have it at different level, when once the child joins a and then he leaves the particular college, if we can have a lot of value addition from the industry side, possibly that is the greatest way that we all can bridge the gap. I know you said it very well as such. Over to you, Vinodji, for the closing comments.
Thank you, Doctor. Um, Look, I think we discussed this again. I think as we recrystallize the new normal, I think there is a need for us to reimagine every aspect for everybody, because the playbook that we had is just non-relevant anymore. So as we redefine the new playbook, there is an opportunity for us to redefine this collaboration. It's clear that it is the intent of both the industry and the academia and even the students that this need to be addressed. This can be enormously beneficial for like a country like India, where we are being very, very aspirational, and this can help us in bridging the gap of what the industry and the academias are learning. Now, the question is that what will be the trigger point? What will be the catalyst? Maybe more sessions like this can be the catalyst. There can be more like the white paper that you're saying, a policy can be a catalyst. So while we wait for the catalyst, my only request is that let's not just hold on to some of the program. There are low-hanging fruits like interns, alumni, which we should leverage, and we can start that engagement and see where it goes. So there's a huge opportunity. Again, I thank IMC for this opportunity, and also for bringing this topic, which is very, very relevant and contextual to what we are aspiring for.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Parshuraman ji. Over to you for the closing comments, please. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Haridas. I think the sum and substance is, the back to basics is what I said is missing. Therefore, the learning should happen, just not the know-how, but know why. Every learning, there should be questioning attitude. So to get into the root of the problem, both by the students as well as the faculty. Of course, today, big challenge is whatever we are learning in the engineering colleges, I would say 95% are not applied when it comes to actual job. So it is very important that we should also prioritize the learning curriculum itself. For example, mathematics, the core mathematics is very important, which is common across the board. The core science, which is common across the board. But certain areas, a lot of kaizens can be done. You can remove those portions and bring in more of a practical touch. In fact, today, thanks to the digital transformation, the e-learning practical modules can be input. You don't have to have the physical laboratory. Today, you have the e-laboratory. So you can get the best of the modules from across the globe, and e-learning platforms on practical applications can be encouraged. So this would drive very, very strong fundamentals. What is relevant for the industry? I think this kind of learning would accelerate the understanding and make them quickly employable. And the second important thing is more industrial executives should be put back to academics, in part of framing the syllabus, framing the curriculum, and more exposure for the academic, professors to come to the, real corporates, work with them. And therefore, this way, the bridging the gap becomes much more easier. Finally, the students, should have their own passion. It's very important to understand the passion of the student. Even though a student has joined engineering, I'm very sorry to say, even the final year, he's not very clear where he wants to go, wherever he is, That's the kind of, but when you look at other countries, even at the age of 7th standard or 8th standard, they are very crystal clear where they would like to go. Which means unless the mind is there, then your heart is not there. Therefore, it's very, very important to understand the true north, where a student would like to excel. Therefore, the counselors and, the lot of senior experts should interact with them and try to mold them in the right direction. So that way, the gap will get bridged very quickly. And even framing the questions for the, examinations, there should be a lot of people, experts from the industry, so that questions need not be theoretical. It should be a practical problem-solving tools. Like given a kind of a complex problem, from industrial perspective, how would you solve the problem? Or some kind of industrial kit they can solve. a kind of a practical demonstration. Today, thanks to the technology, it's very important. And finally, thanks to the COVID, we have at least leaped forward one generation. At least 10 years, whole world has leaped forward, which means going into the new era. I think that all this artificial intelligence, IoT, 3D printing, nanotechnology, big data, quantum mechanics, all will integrate to form a new set of manufacturing. So this warrants new set of skill sets, which is completely blank now at this point of stage. Therefore, it's very, very important to fathom this kind of a change at the earliest by the academic institutions. And how do we, develop the curriculum and the skill sets required to develop the futuristic leaders, future skill sets required for. I think this is a very, very hot and very important topic. I'm sure the NSDC is also working very actively with the institutions and the corporates to bring out early solution to this. So it's very important that the academics should think very seriously and probably relook into the entire curriculum at the earliest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all panelists. It's always well said that knowledge has no value unless you use it and share it. And I'm so thankful to all three of you today for for sharing the knowledge and the time both. Of course, you have generously shared your knowledge as well as the time. I always feel that time is the best gift which anyone can give it to the other, because you are giving a part of your life, and possibly you have given to us for a right cause. And I'm sure IMC and MIT World Peace University will definitely try their best to bridge the gap between this, and we are definitely looking forward for a bright future for Mother India. And education is something, it's not only giving the degrees to the children, but we definitely have to give something back to the society. And if the universities like WPU, the World Peace University, we are located at Pune, if we can be the catalyst in bridging the gap between these two, possibly that is something, a little contribution which the university is giving for the national development. I'm so thankful to both WPU as well as IMC for bringing all of us together for the noble cause. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to work with all of you, and looking forward for the continued association. Thank you. I enjoyed moderating this session here. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Namaskar. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Purnima, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, all the dignitaries who have joined us on an online dais. It has been a very successful deliberation, and I'm sure that we have noted down all the key takeaways from this session. I would like to request all the participants that please join us for another interesting day full of sessions and brainstorming discussions for day 2 of this conclave, which is tomorrow, and we start at 10 a.m. sharp. The next session that will be at 10 a.m. will be on the theme Opportunities and Challenges for Sustainable R&D Initiatives in India. So, dear participants, please join us tomorrow for day 2 of Indcon Conclave 3 at 10 a.m. sharp.
Before we log out, possibly we can take a group photo. Is that done, Purnima?
No, ma'am, not yet, not yet.
We'll just take a group photo for, of course, no photographers will be around, but we will have the screenshot and a smile on the face so that we can capture this particular moment.
Yeah, can we get Dr. Khandekar also online? Dr. Khandekar, Jayant, if all of you can switch on your cameras.
Yeah. I think we are good to go now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.